Welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Rath Wang. 32 NATO members signed a communique at the recent summit in Washington, D.C. Apart from condemning Russia, where it hits closest to NATO's home turf, the communique also took a jab at China. It stated that China, through its No Limits partnership and substantial support for Russia's defense industry, has become a decisive enabler of Russia's war against Ukraine. We'll also discuss the U.S. elections and what impact a potential Trump 2.0 administration could have on the region, and in particular, Taiwan. Joining us today are Yuan Yi, National Zhengzhi University Institute of International Relations Adjunct Research Fellow, Charles Liu, University of California Davis Economics Adjunct Professor, and State of California Principal Economist. A warm welcome to both on the show today. Starting out with you, Professor Yuan, how do you see this communique? Does it effectively position Russia and China as adversaries of Western democracies?
I'd like to remind our audience that this event coincides with the 75th anniversary also between Sino-USSR before and Sino-Russia. So this is 75 years anniversary actually provide with a lot of history. The people recognize that this time, because due to the Ukraine war, that China took the position by facilitating the Russia's military needs. Therefore, they are the one who, on the front page for many months ago so far. So I would say this very acquisition to label China as a decisive enabler on this ongoing war provides some evidence. The NATO provide with its membership about exactly the evidence that they gather about Chinese position and actions. Therefore, they label them as the collaborator for this ongoing illegal war.
I wanted to speak a bit about the economic impact, with the EU announcing in June sanctions on 19 Chinese companies. We've seen the US also have something similar come out. How will this impact the Chinese economy, especially with its focus on innovation with EVs?
Yeah, absolutely. Usually we say there are like three horses leading the Chinese economy. First one is consumption, housing, and then export. These three horses has been like reading forcefully. So China's economy has been growing double digits for decades. But now we see that their unemployment rate, especially youth unemployment rate, has reached like an all-time high, more than 20%. And their exports seems to be the only one that's leading the cart of economic cart. And their housing market is still a lot of houses are still under the water. So export is really the main horse or the main economic force that's able to keep Chinese economy afloat. And especially their EV industry, like you said, their EV industry has been really blooming. And last year, 2023, more than 4 million cars were exported from China, and the majority of them went to EU. And the European Union, because of the fancy car and because of the good price, so they've been purchasing a lot of Chinese exporting cars. And then Elon Musk himself even complained about how BYD, the famous Chinese car manufacturing, has been overtaking Tesla and becoming the world's largest manufacturer. And with that being said, China, compared to Russia at least, has a higher stake. Being sanctioned, they don't really export that much oil like Russia, or they don't have that. A lot of their exporting products are EV cars, electronics. So they're actually having a higher stake.
So how big of the impact do you feel this would have?
Oh, I think this is going to be very big impact, because you can really tell it from how they respond to these 19 company sanction. They've been sending out a lot of dovish messages saying that, oh, we should talk, we shouldn't be kind of raise everything, we shouldn't politicize everything. and this is for the good of the whole world and having a, attaining that climate change goal. So you can tell it from their tone and how they respond that they don't want this to happen. And honestly, it is true that they've been, and this is only really the only thing that, one of the few things that keeping their economy afloat, because domestically their EV consumption has dropped by 10% from their peak. And then you can see how it's being played out. And then China definitely doesn't want, the last thing China wants is to having that sanction and having their last fire to die down.
Still on China, China recently hosted the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit, also known as the CSO. Many analysts have said that this is China's attempt to counterbalance NATO, given China's emphasis on economics and using that to work with its partners. Professor Yuan, how do you see this in terms of China attempting to counterbalance NATO?
I would say it is not necessarily a counterbalance mechanism by which China used to against NATO per se. Well, this Shanghai Cooperation Organization was established in much shorter period vis-a-vis that of NATO. It was established in 2001 for the purpose of counter-terrorism, establishing negotiation for the neighboring state, especially with the Central Asia states. So that very mechanism was not set up for as a military purpose. It has a very limited functional exploitations.
The SCO member countries collectively account for 40% of the world's population. They generate 20% of the world's GDP and control 20% of global oil reserves. On the other hand, NATO's strength lies in its military might, with 20 member countries set to achieve at least 2% of GDP on defense this year alone. In terms of the different alliances, as you mentioned, Professor Yuan, do you feel that from a political standpoint, would NATO or the SCO have more impact?
Each alliance tailored to its own collective expectation when forming. And NATO, as the wartime alliance, which lasts for 75 years already, survived the Cold War and demonstrated it was still considered a very cohesive military organization, whereas the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, under the aegis of a dual leadership of both PRC and Russia, I think nowadays since they are getting closer together, I think they for sure they will use this as the way to demonstrate their cohesion and to demonstrate their collective desire on certain aspect of political goals. For that, and I think that they have, one could also realize by witnessing the growth of the membership. So the group enlarged bit by bit. Even, we noticed that they have already invited a NATO member to be potential member to this. So we'll see what happens with this overlap. Very interesting development.
Professor Liu, interesting development indeed. How does the U.S. view this in terms of, you talked about how the new tariffs could impact China substantially, and you're based in California. You are also the principal economist at the state of California, where Tesla's headquarters are, with Elon Musk. Will he see this as an opportunity, and what does this mean for U.S. economic might?
I think the nature of NATO and SCO, I agree with Professor Yuan that it is very, very different. They're different on many levels. First of all, NATO is a military alliance founded in 1949. It was the main purpose to provide the collective security against the Soviet Union, while SCO is more of a regional economic organization or coalition where to build trust and to have that economic tie with each other, founded by China, Russia, and Kyrgyzstan, and Kyrgyzstan, and so on and so forth. So I think they're very different on many levels. But now with geopolitical tension and economic, it's very, very difficult to tease out what's the economic impact versus.
But does the U.S. see this as a threat, you feel, in terms of the SCO?
I don't think this is a threat. I don't think U.S. sees that as a threat because given the nature of how there could be a lot of like internal tension within SCO. For instance, like India is part of the member, and then we know that China and India has been long debating over the border issue, a lot of economic and political issue. And like Professor Yuan said, Turkey, Turkey is on in NATO, and both in NATO and SCO. And then, given the nature of how important, how vital it is, providing the strategic role while U.S. after 2000 with Afghanistan, a lot of the military hubs being built in Turkey. So I think it is hard to even though it's hard to tease out, but I don't think SCO is even able to compare with NATO, while NATO is this very strong historic alliance where SCO is really just, there are a lot of noises within, and they don't seem to have a common goal. And especially with the NATO, they have this Article 5, this is super powerful. They have, if you attack on one country, you're attacking all countries.
Still on NATO, but let's talk a bit about the US elections. Professor Yuan, we've seen this assassination attempt in Trump, and we've seen the debate performance of President Biden. Many polls are showing that former President Trump is gaining popularity from either sympathy or in terms of how the American public is not confident that President Biden could continue as president for 4 more years. With that, and with concerns from NATO members, how do you think a Trump 2.0 presidency would work with NATO?
For the issue, people are concerned about the most urgent issue, that is the war over the Ukraine and Russia. So would Donald Trump, should he be the president of the United States to do something, I think the uncertainty constitute the overriding consideration whether Donald Trump would press Ukraine to go on the negotiation with Russia to end the war, all right? Because Donald Trump doesn't seem to show his enthusiasm on supporting the U.S. congressional debate in a past month demonstrated the Republican lawmaker don't show their enthusiasm passing the bill. Therefore, very likely, on top of the list, should Donald Trump be elected, that the first item would be war on Ukraine. Okay, that would also create some fuss amongst the NATO members. I think we have just seen what has been achieved and what has been agreed upon, passing by the former Secretary General to the incoming one, to foster more cohesion each time, to demonstrate that the NATO, under the aegis of the Article 5, would usher necessary actions. And yet another item on the list: would NATO accept Ukraine as a 33rd member to the organization? Will be another piece. But I think that so far, the worldview, the world will be altered, no doubt about it. Should Donald Trump assume his presidency, because he has said many times he would demonstrate it somehow very, very different the way he's dealing with the issues.
Professor Liu, still on President Trump, if he does become president again come January, do you feel that the world economy would be changed in any way, or do you feel that there would be ripple effects on Taiwan?
I think sometimes presidential candidate, they would like to put a lot of credit, put a lot of credit on them if the economy is doing well, and they would blame the overall environment if the economy is doing badly. From an economist's point of view, how a policy or executive power can affect the economy, especially economy as big as United States, $25 trillion of economy, I don't think that anything can be done in 4 years that to change the course of the economy. But Donald Trump, he's at the bottom, he is a businessman, so he would use a lot of the economic power or political power to coerce and get things that he wanted to be done. Compared to Biden, and Biden is more meticulous, he's more methodical, and he used policy, he used talk, he used conversation. But at the end, the goal is the same, which is the U.S. interest. So I don't think the bottom line differ that much, despite all the debates and conversation. But I think their method will be very different. So
should Taiwan be worried?
I think Taiwan should be aware that all U.S. presidents always have their own country's interest in mind, and how Taiwan's interest doesn't always align with the U.S. interest. Of course, none of the country in the world have perfectly 100% aligned interest. But what can we do to respond to this kind of coercion if it comes to Taiwan, using what we have as a leverage, like our semiconductor industry, which is being the leader of the world? How do we use that? How do we get something that we want or secure some of the safety from the United States to get things that we want? So I think that's something that we need to think about.
Professor Yuan, you talked a bit earlier about Republicans and how they see Ukraine. How do you feel Republicans see China, and in particular Donald Trump, if he becomes president again? Do you feel that that would affect cross-state relations in a way that could change the status quo or Taiwan's current status?
I think the Beijing would welcome Donald Trump for the sake, openly, Donald Trump promised he will keep TikTok, all right, unlike Biden. So there are good news and there are bad news. But overall, I think the trade war, high-tech war will continue. And the military confrontation will persist. I think the Washington's position on the Indo-Pacific strategy would continue. So it won't be a drastic change. And yet, I think Donald Trump has been recognized as someone that is unpredictable. Therefore, I think what matters the most, we are so curious about who will constitute the core circle for Donald Trump's presidency. We were told Bob O'Brien, the former NSC staff, Mike Pompeo, and also the Bob Lighthizer. I think that frightened a lot of people, because this former USTR representative, would be the one who caught the shots. Especially, I think Taiwan should be aware of this, because in 1987, it was Bob Lighthizer who damaged a great deal about Taiwan's economy by forcing Taiwan to reevaluate its Taiwan dollar currency. Therefore, I think it will serve as the backbone for Donald Trump's presidency. American First policy will be the overriding policy to anticipate it. So I think the overall friends and foes should be aware of the forthcoming new administration, one way or the other.
Professor Liu, given that there's a lot of investment coming into Taiwan from the U.S., you've seen NVIDIA come in with Jensen Huang, you've seen AMD, you've seen Google. How do you see that in terms of aligning with U.S. policy, especially U.S. national interests under Donald Trump?
Yeah, under Donald Trump, I think I agree with Professor Yuan that there's a lot of, it's unpredictable to say the least. And you get a lot of disruptions, like economic, like trade wars. But the bottom line is, again, I say this, I already mentioned it, but I think it is, we need to keep in mind that the US president will care only about US interest. And then Taiwan, a lot of investment coming to Taiwan that might be divest from China, and then they found they desperately need to find a new place. But business will come and go. But in terms of politics, in terms of the interests of Taiwan, we shouldn't be overly joyful or too excited.
So what's the best policy in your perspective?
I think the best policy is to secure a official security promise from the United States. I think that's a far-fetched, but I think it is crucial that Taiwan shouldn't be just a chess piece. It should be a critical part of the whole strategic plan of how U.S. is see the world. So I think for now, both Biden and Trump, I think they see Taiwan as a chess piece. How they can leverage Taiwan to hold back China and make sure that Taiwan is in alliance with the United States. I think there should be some give and take, both in trade and also in politics.
So, Professor Liu, you're saying that Taiwan uses its competitive economic advantage around technology and chips to barter or to negotiate a deal where if China decides to invade Taiwan, that the U.S. will make a clear-cut public statement that it will support Taiwan in that case.
Yeah, something along the line. And then you can see that what U.S. care about is during COVID is they found out, semiconductor is a big problem. And now they noticed that Taiwan is the leader of a semiconductor, and a lot of the, because the car industry had to shut down because they used to do this just-in-time delivery, but they can no longer do that. So they found out that it's very important to have semiconductor being produced domestically. And they see that, Taiwan has all these, and Taiwan is right next to China, so what should we do? We should bring them to United States. So we see that Phoenix, they now
with the CHIPS Act.
With the CHIPS Act, $53 billion. So that's what they're doing. They're trying to de-risk their own risk and not our risk, right? So we have to recognize that we have the leverage, right, in semiconductor industry and also our strategic role. So how do we build that into this complete conversation, not just one-off about semiconductor, one-off about trade deal, one-off about the 21st century trade initiative? It should be a whole holistic view, and it shouldn't be just one-off.
Professor Yuan, given that President Biden still has an advantage in terms of incumbency, and political pundits or poll and analysis still say that unless there is something largely damaging or surprising in the U.S., there is still a high chance that Biden could be reelected. With that, in the case that Biden is reelected, how do you see Taiwan and China policy going forward, and in terms of U.S. national interests?
I think it would be more predictable to have more predictions that could be ascertained in advance, or given the last 4 years interaction with the United States. However, I would still argue that the chances for Biden to be reelected diminished after the first debate. But Biden has done something good for Taiwan so far, because he set the parameters, set the rules and to follow. I think the U.S.-China's rivalry will continue regardless how much that has been achieved. Therefore, Taiwan would have to anticipate it, that the unstable, unpredictable, or hazardous condition across Taiwan Strait will be continuing. Yet, I think Taiwan has also taken into account any agency that could be generated by Taiwan as a small party to this ongoing major power rivalry.
Last question, Professor Liu. Given that you just came from the United States and you're also from California, Gavin Newsom has been seen in the media as a potential replacement for President Biden should this downhill fall lead to an eventual replacement of the Democratic ticket. How likely will that help in terms of a re-election or maintaining of the administration?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and there has been some talk about Gavin Newsom and some talk about Gretchen Whitmer and Kamala Harris. And Kamala Harris was, by the way, she used to be the California Department of Justice, the director of that. So a lot of people coming from California, but honestly speaking, I don't see Gavin Newsom as a viable option because he has a really limited experience on the federal level. All his experiences on the state level in California, in San Francisco, and he was the deputy governor prior to his current term. So he doesn't really have that much experience, and then also his political view is a little bit extreme to a lot of the even for Democratic folks. And I think this overall, and Biden said he's here to stay, he's not going anywhere. So even though this is a very unlikely that if it comes to that Gavin Newsom will be representing Democratic Party to run for the president, I don't think it's a good news for Taiwan, honestly speaking, because Gavin Newsom has been, last October, he went to China as an envoy for President Biden, and he had only the best word to praise about the BYD. He test drove the BYD and said that we should get the Chinese cars, EV cars to United States. He met Xi Jinping. So I think overall he's at times you feel like he's at times opportunistic, but also he has a very fond kind of relationship with China. So I don't think that will work on Taiwan's favor, both economically and politically.
Thank you very much both for your insights today.
Thank you.
If you liked our show, please search for us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, and hit subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching our show. Stay safe and see you next time.